Are you ready to start with our first Growing Chef's lesson? My name is Chef Selma and I will be guiding you through our first lesson today. In this lesson we will talk about gardens in our very first garden talk. Then we will look at our seeds and our soil up close, and then we'll plant our windowsill garden. Every week we'll have a little moment to check in on our gardens. We call these moments our garden talk, so let's do our first one today. For this garden talk, I'd like you to take one sheet of paper, just a letter sheet of blank paper if you have it, and a pencil or some colored pencils if you have them, and put them in front of you. I'd like you to take a moment to think deeply about what a garden is to you. So which colors, shapes, plants, or animals come up for you when you think about gardens? I like closing my eyes when I think deeply, so you can do that too if you like. Take a minute, maybe pause the video, and then we'll write it out, okay? Did you do it? Okay. Now we can take some time to write down all of those words, colors, shapes, animals, plants that come up for you. So you can pause the video again, write all of those things out. If you want to color the sheet, make some drawings, that's also great. So take some time to do that. Maybe you were thinking about green things, or sunshine, or bees, or tomatoes. Write all of it down. If you're unsure about spelling, then this is a good time to ask your adult to check what you wrote and help correct you. Great, thank you. Let me show you our example. You can take some time to create some artwork as well if you like. Perfect, what's our next step? We need to get ready to grow our very own windowsill vegetable garden. To plant a garden, you'll need seeds. Seeds are a part of the plant that we use to grow new plants. We put them in the soil in a particular way and take good care of them, and if we're lucky, a whole plant will grow out of one tiny little seed. It's very exciting. So let's look at them up close. Please ask your adult to help you pour some of each of our seeds into a small bowl. However many different kinds of seeds you have, maybe have different bowls for them so that we don't mix them up, because we want to make sure we put the right seeds in the right containers later. Okay, let's put our imaginary scientist lab coat on and really look at these seeds up close. What do you see? You want to look at color, texture, and size. Take a minute to pause the video, look at each of the types of seeds that you have, and write down your findings on your sheet. You can also try to trace a seed or draw it in addition to writing your findings. If you're unsure about spelling, maybe ask your adult to check what you wrote and help correct you. Okay, we're looking at color, texture, shape, and size. Okay, what are we finding? I have peas, beans, and something called mesclun. We'll get into that. So I have my peas here. They are green, different tints of green. They look a bit shriveled. They have some ridges on them, and they kind of look like a dried up pea, which is correct because that is what they are. The seeds of the pea plant, which most of us just call peas, is the part of the plant that most of us are familiar eating. There are many other parts of the pea plant that you can eat. We'll talk about that in some other lesson. Let's look at our beans. Beans come in many different colors. Mine are white, and same as the peas, these might look familiar to you. Beans we can eat at many different stages of growth. These have been grown to their full potential and then dried to be used as seeds. This is how we want to plant them, but we could also eat them at this stage. We'd have to soak them and cook them for quite some time to make them soft. Let's look at these mesclun. So on the packaging it says mesclun, and there's a whole bunch of different green leafage on the front here. So pretty much what that is it is a mixture of different kinds of lettuces and different kinds of greens. So this seed mix looks like a whole bunch of different seeds, which is correct. So some of them are round and brown, and some of them are round and black, and there's a couple bits of some other colors in there too. These will grow into very small versions of a plant, and then we can harvest them and eat them at that stage. I hope you wrote some fun observations down. Are you ready to plant our garden? Okay, let's take our imaginary scientist coat off and put our gardener overalls on. Okay, so now that we know that what we are going to be planting, we need to know what we are planting it in. So I've asked you to get some soil. Now, we say that soil is different from dirt, like the stuff that gets on your knees when you play outside, or dried, caked stuff on the sidewalk, because soil has nutrients in it. Nutrients really are just plant food, things that are good for the plant to grow in and grow tall. So soil is the base, the food, and the home of our seeds. So if you have your containers with you, I pre-filled these so that I wouldn't make a mess inside my house. I pre-filled these on my porch. So feel free to pause the video and go and fill your containers. A shallower container for your greens and a deeper container, like one of these yogurt containers, for your beans and peas. So feel free to pause and go and do that. Ready? Okay. As a general rule, we'll want to plant these seeds twice as deep as they are long, which means if I start with my beans here, I can measure the bean on my finger, kind of like this. So if the bean is this long, I want to plant it about that deep. Do you see? Okay, if the bean is this long, I want to plant it that deep. So that's round about there on my finger. So what I'm going to do is make 2 holes in this yogurt container. I don't really want to create more than 2 bean plants in this container because it's not very big and those roots are going to need some space. Okay, so 2 holes. I know how deep I need to go with my finger, so I'll go one on this end, about that deep, and one on that end, about that deep. So those holes are kind of as far away from each other as they can be. And I've made a hole the depth that I know the seed is going to like, okay? So I'm going to take 1 bean for each hole, drop it into the hole, 1, 2, and then I'm going to cover those holes up. So I'm just going to cover them up like that, pat them down just a little bit, and then that's that. We planted our beans. So really the only thing I need right now is to add some water to this. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so that's my beans. And then this will be my peas. Same thing. I want to look at how big the seed is against my finger. And then measure out twice that size, so round about up to here. So slightly less deep than we did our beans. Make a hole about that deep. And another one on the opposite side. Drop the seed in the hole, 1 in each hole, and cover them up like that. Perfect. Now for our greens, we've noticed that our green seeds are much, much smaller than our peas and beans, right? So they don't need to go as deep. They might not even need to go under the soil at all. I'm going to move a little bit of the soil to the side, so I can use it to cover the rest of it up. I have my little bowl of seeds over there. Really what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a pinch of these seeds, which really is just anything that fits between these 3 fingers if I do it like that. So a little pinch of these seeds. I'm going to sprinkle them over the top. So nothing too close to itself, just a little bit over everywhere. Okay, not too much, definitely not all of it. I'm going to use the soil that I put in the corner here to just sprinkle over all of it. So these seeds don't need to be in deep at all. It is okay if you can even still see them sitting on the top. So that's all in there. So now we planted our beans, our peas, and our greens. So let's talk about the next step, watering. Especially in the early stages of our garden here, we want to be very careful with our watering. These seeds are going to slowly start growing. We'll talk about that in our next garden talks, but we don't want to really shuffle the soil around a whole lot. So what I like using, if you have one of these dudes, is just a little spray bottle with some regular tap water in it to make sure that we water our new garden. So what we'll do is we'll just do this now. This is our very first time. Now what we're looking to do for here is we have to take care of our garden on a regular basis. How can we tell if the garden needs water? There's not really that much of a science to it, as in I can't tell you it has to be every 2 days or it has to be every 3 days. It really depends on which direction your window is facing and all of those things, right? So what we want to do is we want to test the soil. If it needs water, it will tell you. If it doesn't need any water, it will tell you that too. So I've just watered this one, so if I touch it, some of that soil is going to stick to my fingers. See that? It's wet on the top, so I don't need to water this again. Now this one, we haven't watered this one yet, so if I put my finger on there, not as much soil is stuck to my finger. See that? So this is fairly dry, so I want to water this a little more. Okay, so you can also just use one of these, a watering can. All right, so that's our watering. Now where do I put this stuff? I put it on my windowsill. It doesn't really matter which direction your windowsill is facing, but if it is facing south, if you have a window with a windowsill facing south, that would be ideal, just because it would get some more sun that way. Thank you so much for joining us today in planting our windowsill vegetable garden together. We're going to put these on the windowsill and we'll check back in with them together next week. Keep an eye on your windowsill garden. Make sure you check it every day. Check the soil on the top if it needs some water. If it's sunny, probably will need some water every day. So please take good care of it. And then we'll see you next time and see if something exciting is going to happen. Bye.